Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at something I think all of us are dealing with pretty much every day, and that is the meaning of work. Especially now with all this crazy AI stuff happening, it seems like all the rules are changing. And, you sent in this really fascinating personal reflection from someone who's actually going through a career transition right now. And I think it brings up some pretty huge questions that I think a lot of us are pondering.
Absolutely. It's really interesting how this person's using their own life as the experiment.
Mm.
You know, they've gone through loving some jobs and hating others, and now they're kind of in this in-between searching phase, which I think a lot of our listeners can relate to.
Yeah, totally. And one thing that really jumped out at me in this piece was this shift from this idea of, do what you love to what they call work you're willing to. I feel like that's such a subtle change, but there's something kind of profound there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a move away from this sort of romanticized notion that work should always be, blissful, willing to, kind of implies choice.
Yeah.
Even grit when things get tough.
Mm.
It acknowledges that even the most fulfilling work will have its challenges.
Yeah.
Right? Like, think about your own experiences. Haven't there been times when you've been motivated not by like external pressure, but by a genuine interest in what you were doing?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And this person actually talks about how their mental well-being actually improved after leaving their last job, even though they were successful by typical standards. It's like their internal compass was kind of out of whack.
Exactly. And they even wrote this reflection piece in their free time simply because they saw value in it, not for any external reward or anything. And that speaks to this idea of internal drive,
Mm.
right? The author actually exceeded expectations in past roles, not because someone was breathing down their neck, but because they were intrinsically motivated by the work itself. It wasn't just a job, it was something they were passionate about.
And this kind of ties into an article they mentioned called The Happiness Bonus, which basically argues that if you're not struggling financially, you have the freedom to prioritize work that brings fulfillment, even if it means less money or fame. But is that really realistic for most people, though?
It's a huge privilege for sure, and there are definitely systemic barriers that we can't ignore. But what if instead of asking, how much can I earn, we ask, what kind of work would let me thrive? You know, that question alone could shift your whole perspective.
It's like flipping the script on how we even view our careers,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the author also touches on this idea of entrepreneurship. But with some reservations, it seems like it's less about the label and more about the problem they want to solve.
Yeah, they see entrepreneurship as a means to an ends, not the end in itself. And they're being incredibly honest about their strengths and weaknesses. They even admit to feeling more like a support person than like a leader.
Right.
Right. And I think this self-awareness is so refreshing, especially in a world that often glorifies, the go-getter entrepreneur.
It's like they're saying, I'm still figuring it out, and that's okay, which I think is so important. And this also ties into their approach to networking, which is also quite different from the typical collect as many connections as possible mentality.
Yeah, they're all about building genuine relationships and showcasing their authentic self through their writing and through their personal website. It's about attracting the right opportunities rather than chasing every single one. Have you ever felt that pull towards work that truly resonates with you? The kind of work that just clicks?
Oh, absolutely. There's just this energy that comes from working on something that feels aligned with your values and your interests. It stops feeling like work and it becomes more like an extension of who you are.
And that's exactly what this author is getting at.
Right.
It's not just about finding a job, it's about finding your place in the world, your contribution,
Mm-hmm.
which leads to a really fascinating approach to the whole job hunt.
Yeah, they call it mutual selection. Both the employer and the candidate should be a good fit.
It's almost like a dating analogy,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You wouldn't just marry the first person you go on a date with.
Mm.
Exactly. It takes time and effort to find a good match, and that applies to jobs too. The author suggests focusing on a few truly interesting opportunities and doing deep research, like talking to people, using the company's products, really understanding their culture.
So it's less about blasting out resumes and more about being selective and strategic. It's like they're saying, I'm worth the effort and I'm willing to put in the work to find the right fit.
And that selectivity also extends to their view on traditional hiring processes. They're actually quite skeptical about resumes and interviews being the sole measure of someone's potential.
Yeah, they even said something like, if AI can easily evaluate someone for a job, that job might not be all that secure in the first place, which is kind of mind-blowing.
It is. It is. They believe that a comprehensive personal website can actually showcase your skills and experiences in a more holistic way. And it allows you to tell your story on your own terms, not just through the lens of a resume.
Now, this is where things get really interesting. The AI question. The author brings it up head-on, addressing that age-old fear of robots taking our jobs. It's a topic that's been debated for decades, with articles predicting mass unemployment. Yet here we are, still working.
What the author points out is that even the most advanced AI needs a human touch, a well-designed interface, a way to interact with it effectively. That's where creativity, problem-solving, and those uniquely human skills come into play.
So it's not about being afraid of AI, it's about understanding how it's going to reshape the landscape of work and adapting accordingly. And this actually leads to another crucial question. What do we do with the time and efficiency that AI potentially frees up? Do we just work more, or do we find space to actually live?
That's the challenge, isn't it? To
Yeah.
find that balance. And the author seems to be drawn towards roles that are grounded in the physical world, things that are harder for AI to fully grasp.
It's almost like a hedge against the uncertainty of the future. If
Yeah.
you're working on something that's deeply connected to the physical world, it's less likely to be completely replaced by a bot.
It's a strategic way to approach it for sure. And it speaks to the author's bigger point about efficiency. Just because we can do things faster doesn't mean we should fill every waking moment with more work.
There's this underlying message about creating a balanced life. Sleep, good food, exercise, connection. Things that often get sacrificed when we're caught up in the hustle.
And the author's journey of leaving their job to create more mental space speaks volumes. Sometimes taking a step back can be the most productive thing you can do. What if you could design your ideal workday? What would that look like?
That's a fantastic question. We'll dive deeper into it right after this. Don't go anywhere.
You know, it's interesting how this whole conversation about a balanced life kind of ties back to the author's skepticism about traditional work structures,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to how we evaluate and hire people.
Right, they felt like resumes and interviews don't really capture the full essence of someone's abilities.
Yeah, like trying to squeeze a multifaceted human being into this tiny little box.
Exactly. And they even go as far as to say, like, if AI can easily evaluate someone for a job, maybe that job isn't all that secure in the long run. Which is kind of a provocative thought.
It is. It makes you think.
It does. So are they saying we should all become like artists or philosophers, jobs that are harder to quantify?
Not necessarily,
Yeah.
but I think they are highlighting the limitations of reducing a complex human being to like bullet points on a resume or a few rehearsed interview answers.
Yeah.
How much do those really reveal about someone's potential, their adaptability, their willingness to learn?
Good point. So what's the alternative? They mentioned building a comprehensive personal website. Is that the answer?
I think it could be part of it, but I think the deeper point is about showcasing your unique value, things that make you stand out in a way that a robot can't replicate.
Right. They even said the harder a role is to evaluate, the less likely it is to be replaced, which is a pretty compelling argument. So what kind of skills are we talking about here?
Think about the qualities that are often undervalued in traditional work settings. Creativity, critical thinking, empathy, the ability to build relationships, adaptability, that willingness to learn new things. These are all things that are really hard to measure on a standardized test or a resume.
But aren't those the very things that make us human? The things that AI, at least for now, can't quite grasp?
Exactly. And this is where the opportunity lies. As AI becomes more sophisticated, it's going to free us up to focus on these uniquely human aspects of work.
So instead of fearing AI as this job-stealing monster, we can kind of view it as a collaborator, as a tool to enhance our abilities and create new possibilities, kind of like how we use computers now. They don't replace us, they augment our capabilities.
Yeah, exactly. And this brings us back to that core principle. Yeah. Do what you're willing to.
Yeah.
Find work that aligns with your values, your interests, and those unique strengths that you bring to the table.
And be willing to put in the effort, even when it's not easy or glamorous. They talk about their professor, Tony Bailetti, who's in his 70s and still working with this incredible passion and energy. It's like age is just a number when you find something you truly believe in.
It really is. And it speaks to this idea that fulfilling work isn't just about finding the right job. It's about cultivating the right mindset, being curious, being adaptable, being willing to continuously learn and grow. They also mentioned this tweet that said, self-management is what employers really want. It's not about what you know right now. It's about your potential and your willingness to take initiative.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being resourceful, asking the right questions, and being willing to figure things out as you go along.
And that requires self-awareness.
Right.
Right? And this author has that in spades. They're honest about their weaknesses, but also confident in their ability to learn and adapt.
And they're not afraid to experiment. They talk about attending entrepreneurship events, exploring different opportunities, even though they haven't fully committed to starting their own business yet.
Yeah, experimentation is key. It's how we discover what truly resonates with us, what we're passionate about, what we're willing to pour our time and energy into.
And sometimes that means taking a step back, like this author did by leaving their job. It can be scary to leave the familiar behind, but it can also be an incredible opportunity for growth, self-discovery. Have you ever taken a leap of faith like that in your own career?
Well, there have definitely been times when I've had to step outside my comfort zone and embrace the unknown, and it's always been worth it in the end. Those experiences have shaped who I am and helped me discover what I truly value in my work.
It can be a chance to reassess your priorities, to reconnect with your values, to ask those big questions about what you want your life and your work to look like.
Absolutely.
One of the things that really resonated with me about this author's perspective is that it's so deeply personal. They're not trying to offer a one-size-fits-all solution. They're sharing their own journey and inviting us to reflect on our own.
Yes. And that's what makes this deep dive so valuable. It's not about giving you the answers. It's about equipping you with the questions, the frameworks, the tools to navigate your own path.
And to remember that there is a path, even if it's not always clear or linear. Like they say in that book, they mentioned the pathless path. Sometimes it's about letting go of those conventional expectations and forging your own way. I feel like so many people get caught up in trying to follow a predetermined script when it comes to their careers.
Absolutely. And that can be both liberating and terrifying,
Yeah.
right? But ultimately, it's about taking ownership of your journey and creating a life that feels authentic and meaningful to you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I have one final thought for you to ponder. This person took a risk by leaving their job not just for the mental space it gave them, but to pursue something they truly believed in. What would it take for you to make a bold move like that?
It's about identifying what truly matters to you and having the courage to take a step towards it. What's one small step you can take this week to move closer to that goal, even if it's just brainstorming ideas or having conversation with someone who inspires you?
It could be as simple as updating your LinkedIn profile or reaching out to someone you admire for a virtual coffee chat. Every journey starts with a single step.
And remember, you're not alone in this. There are countless others out there asking these same questions, facing these same challenges, and searching for their own unique paths.
It's so easy to just get caught up in the day-to-day grind and forget to even ask yourself those bigger questions. Like, what am I actually passionate about? What kind of impact do I want to have?
Yeah.
What does it even mean to thrive?
You're right. And this author's willingness to hit pause, step back, and reevaluate their path, I think that's so powerful. It reminds all of us that it's never too late to course correct and pursue a career that really aligns with, your values and your aspirations as they change over time.
And they're not just talking about it. They're actively going out there and seeking out connections, looking for like-minded individuals or companies or organizations. It's like throwing out a lifeline saying, hey, let's figure this out together.
Yeah, it is. It's a collective exploration of what work could be and should be,
Yeah.
especially in this age of, all this crazy technology.
Yeah.
It's not just about individual fulfillment. It's about how can we create a world where work is more meaningful, more equitable, more sustainable for everybody.
It's about redefining success, not just in terms of money or status, but in terms of the positive impact we have on the world and the well-being we cultivate in our own lives. And it all starts with being willing to, ask those tough questions and take those small steps towards change.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought. What's one tiny action you can take today, no matter how small, to move closer to the work and the life that you truly desire?
It could be as simple as updating your resume, researching a new skill, reaching out to someone for advice. Every journey starts with a single step, and the most important thing is to keep moving forward. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the meaning of work. We hope it's given you some food for thought and inspired you to create a more fulfilling and purposeful career journey for yourself. Until next time, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep diving deep.